Outdoor adventures are supposed to be about reaching new places and testing your limits. But sometimes nature pushes back in ways no one can survive. In this video, we'll look at 5 more of the worst deaths in outdoor adventure history. Real stories of people who set out for something great, but met dangers that ended everything. It was June 13, 1987 in Prescott, Arizona. 23-year-old Kathy Sposito, a college student, set out early that morning, riding her bike to Thumb Butte Trail, a popular hiking spot. She was adventurous, loved nature, and often explored local trails. That morning, she planned to enjoy a peaceful hike, but by the end of the day, she would never return home. Kathy reached the trailhead around 7 a.m. and began her hike. The trail was well known, often filled with hikers and considered safe. But that morning, a horrifying attack took place. A 16-year-old boy named Brian Scott Bennett, a newcomer to Prescott, ambushed Kathy. He struck her with a wrench, leaving her disoriented. Then he used a .22 caliber firearm, firing twice, and inflicted further harm before leaving her to succumb to her injuries. Hikers nearby heard her screams and rushed to help, but it was too late. The incident shocked the community, a brutal attack in what was supposed to be a peaceful area. Despite a thorough investigation, police found little evidence. The case went cold for decades. But in 2017, advances in DNA technology finally brought new hope. Authorities had continued investigating Kathy's case over the years, waiting for a scientific breakthrough. Finally, with modern DNA testing, they re-examined old evidence. The results led them to Brian Scott Bennett. Bennett had been just 16 years old at the time of Kathy's death. He had moved to Prescott from Kentucky, briefly attended Prescott High School, and then dropped out. What investigators didn't know at the time was that Kathy wasn't his only victim. 3 years after Kathy's murder in 1990, another woman was attacked on the same trail. She had been camping with her boyfriend and decided to go on a solo hike. Within minutes, she was ambushed. The attacker held a rock to her head and assaulted her before fleeing into the woods. Though she survived, the trauma haunted her for years. That same year, Bennett was also accused of locking a girl in a room at a house party in Chino Valley and attempting to harm her. Though arrested, he was acquitted due to a lack of evidence. Then in June 1993, he struck again. This time, outside a Prescott post office, he forced a woman into a car at knife point and assaulted her. A police officer happened to pull them over for a traffic violation, unknowingly interrupting the crime. Bennett was arrested, but once again, charges weren't filed, allowing him to walk free. In 1994, Bennett died by his own actions, leaving many unanswered questions. With him gone, investigators could no longer bring him to justice in court. But in 2022, authorities decided to exhume his body to compare his DNA with evidence from past cases. The results confirmed that Bennett was responsible for Kathy Sposito's death and the 1990 assault on the trail. One of Bennett's survivors, Renee Sandoval, had been the woman kidnapped in 1993. Thanks to the police officer's traffic stop, she survived. But it took decades for her to find peace. In a 2023 press conference, she addressed Kathy directly, saying, "Kathy, you're free. We've all waited so long for this." Her words resonated with the Prescott community. Kathy's case had been one of the longest unsolved crimes in Yavapai County. But thanks to years of dedicated police work and DNA advancements, justice was finally served. While the case brought closure for Kathy's family and the survivors, it also raised more questions. Authorities strongly believe Bennett had more victims, individuals who may have never come forward. Sheriff David Rhodes, one of the key investigators, stated, "I have no doubt these aren't the only cases. When someone is capable of this level of harm, there are usually more incidents we don't know about." Even though Bennett never faced trial, uncovering the truth gave closure to those affected by his actions. Law enforcement continues to encourage anyone with information to come forward, hoping to identify any additional victims. For decades, the murder of Kathy Sposito haunted Prescott. Her case, once considered unsolvable, was finally closed thanks to determined detectives, volunteers, and forensic experts. While nothing can change the past, the truth, though long overdue, finally gave Kathy and her loved ones the justice they had been waiting for. It was November 20th, 2022 in the Blue Mountains of Australia. Richard Mills, a 36-year-old New Zealander, was rock climbing with his friend Gus Taylor. They had chosen a well-known route called Sweet Dreams. Richard was a beginner, and this was his first real climbing experience. Gus, on the other hand, was experienced and eager to introduce his friend to the sport. What was meant to be a thrilling adventure soon turned into a heartbreaking tragedy. Richard, often called Millsy by friends, was known for his adventurous spirit and love for life. He had lived in Australia for years, working in various roles: roadie, manager, TV ad actor, and craft beer salesman. But more than his jobs, people remembered his infectious energy, humor, and ability to light up any room. That afternoon, Richard and Gus set out on the climb. It was considered an easy route, perfect for a beginner, but as Gus made his way up, disaster struck. A loose rock beneath his foot dislodged and fell, striking Richard hard on the back. The impact was severe, and Richard collapsed, struggling to breathe. Despite his pain, Richard instinctively held onto the rope. If he had let go, Gus would have fallen 7 meters to the ground. Even in his critical state, Richard's action saved his friend's life. Gus managed to steady himself and untie from the rope before carefully climbing down to Richard. He held on to his friend, trying to comfort him. "You're going to be okay," he assured him. But as the minutes passed, Richard's condition worsened. Emergency services were called, but reaching them was a challenge. The rocky terrain and worsening weather conditions made a helicopter rescue impossible. Instead, paramedics had to trek through rough terrain and then abseil down the cliff to where Richard lay. Gus stayed by his side, overwhelmed with fear and guilt. He kept apologizing, but Richard, despite his pain, managed a weak smile and said, "It's cool, man." Those would be his final words. By the time paramedics arrived, Richard had gone into cardiac arrest. They did everything they could, but the injuries and delay in reaching medical help had taken their toll. He passed away on that mountainside, leaving his loved ones in shock and grief. His parents, Mary and Oscar, flew to Australia to mourn their son. They embraced Gus, offering him compassion instead of blame. They knew he had done everything he could. Richard's uncle, Mike Sandel, described him as larger than life, someone who made the most of every moment. The loss was deeply felt by his family, friends, and the climbing community. Tributes poured in, with people remembering Richard's humor, warmth, and love for adventure. A local newspaper described him as a man who lit up every room he walked into. His sudden passing left a void that could never be filled. For Gus, the grief was overwhelming. He struggled with guilt, replaying the accident in his mind, wondering if things could have gone differently. He blamed himself, even though it was an unpredictable accident that no one could have foreseen. But Richard's parents reassured him. They reminded him that Richard had saved his life by holding onto that rope. "Millsy saved Gus," they said. It was an incredible act of selflessness in his final moments. Months later, Gus found the strength to return to the cliffs. Therapy had helped him process his grief, but climbing again was difficult. The sport he once loved was now a painful reminder of the friend he had lost. But he knew Richard wouldn't have wanted him to give up. Now Gus climbs with a new purpose. He is training to compete in the 2028 Paralympic Games. Though his journey has been filled with loss and hardship, he is determined to push forward, carrying Richard's memory with him. Richard Mills' life was cut short in a tragic accident, but his adventurous spirit and final act of bravery will never be forgotten. He lived life to the fullest, embracing every moment with joy. His story is one of courage, friendship, and resilience, one that will continue to inspire those who knew him. Would things have turned out differently if the rock had never fallen? If the weather had been better? These questions will never have answers. But what is certain is that Richard Mills made an impact on everyone around him, and his legacy will live on. It was February 20th, 2023 in Fort Pierce, Florida. Gloria Serge, an 85-year-old grandmother, was taking her usual walk with her small dog Trooper in the Spanish Lakes Fairways retirement community. She had lived there for over 20 years, feeling safe and comfortable in the peaceful neighborhood. But that day, something terrible happened, something no one expected. Spanish Lakes Fairways was designed for retirees looking for a quiet and relaxing place to live. The 435-acre community had lakes, ponds, and green spaces where residents could enjoy walks and socialize. It seemed like the perfect place to spend one's later years. However, hidden beneath the calm surroundings was a serious threat. In the retention pond behind Gloria's home, a massive 10-foot, 700-pound alligator had been living there for a long time. The residents were familiar with it and even gave it a name, Henry. People often saw it sunbathing on the banks or gliding through the water. Over time, Henry became a normal part of the landscape, but few realized how dangerous he really was. Gloria had walked by that pond many times before. Like other residents, she knew about the alligator but had no reason to believe it was a risk. There were no warning signs, and in fact, some residents and staff even fed Henry, making him more comfortable around people. This made him less fearful of humans, something that should have raised concerns. Yet nothing was done to remove the alligator or warn residents about the danger. That morning, Gloria and Trooper were walking near the pond when Henry suddenly struck. Witnesses later said that the alligator had been watching them from the water. Then, in a split second, it lunged, grabbing Trooper by the leg. Gloria, acting on instinct, rushed to save her dog, but in doing so, she became Henry's new target. The alligator bit down on Gloria's leg and pulled her into the water. She struggled, but Henry's grip was too strong. Within moments, he dragged her deeper, submerging her. A neighbor saw everything and immediately called 911, but by the time help arrived, it was too late. Gloria was gone. Her sudden and tragic passing left her family in shock. Her son, William Serge, couldn't believe what had happened. "I never could have imagined my mom's final moments being so terrifying," he said. The next day, a professional alligator trapper was called in to capture Henry. The animal put up a fight, but eventually it was caught and put down. However, for Gloria's loved ones, this did nothing to ease their pain. Their mother and grandmother were gone, and they were left wondering how this could have been prevented. Feeling that something should have been done sooner, Gloria's family filed a lawsuit against the community's management, the Wind Building Corporation. They claimed that the company knew about the alligator's presence for years but failed to take action. The lawsuit stated that the management had not put up any signs or warnings about dangerous wildlife. It also pointed out that some residents, including staff members, had been feeding the alligator, making it even more of a threat. According to their attorney, Gary Lesser, the community actively encouraged residents to spend time near the pond, with benches placed around it and people frequently fishing or walking their dogs nearby. There were no warnings about alligators in the weekly newsletter sent to residents, Lesser said. Even now, after the attack, there are still no signs around the pond. Adding to the tragedy, Gloria may have had no choice but to walk her dog near the pond. The community had strict rules about where pets could be walked. In January 2020, Gloria received a warning for taking Trooper outside of designated areas. She was even told she could face eviction if she didn't follow the rules. This may have forced her to walk near the pond, ultimately leading to the tragic event. Gloria's family is seeking $50,000 in damages and has requested a jury trial. Her son William stressed that this could have been avoided. "This never should have happened," he said. "No one should have to lose their mother this way." Despite the lawsuit, the community's president, Joel Wynn, defended the company. He acknowledged the tragedy but argued that Gloria had lived there for a long time and was aware of the alligators. "We understand the family's pain, but alligators are naturally dangerous, and Mrs. Serge knew they were in the area," Wynn said. However, for Gloria's loved ones, this wasn't enough. They believed the community failed to protect its residents. If the alligator had been removed earlier, if signs had been put up, if people had been warned, would Gloria still be alive? These are the questions that remain unanswered. What happened to Gloria Serge wasn't just an unfortunate accident. It was something that could have been prevented. And now her family is left searching for justice. It was June 1st, 2024, in the Aosta Valley of northern Italy. Jean-Daniel Pession, a 28-year-old professional skier, and his girlfriend, 26-year-old Elisa Arlian, set out for a hike on Mount Zerbion, a mountain they knew well. Pession was a skilled speed skier, ranking 15th in the 2021 World Cup, while Elisa was a ski instructor who shared his love for the mountains. That morning, they planned to reach the summit, a popular spot among outdoor enthusiasts. They had hiked this route before, fully aware of the challenges. But this time something went wrong. When the couple didn't return home that evening, their families became concerned and reported them missing. A search and rescue operation was launched immediately. Helicopters scanned the mountain, and search teams searched the rugged terrain, but there were no visible clues. Hours passed with no sign of them. Rescuers eventually detected a signal from one of their cell phones, leading them to the site of the tragedy. When they arrived, they found Pession and Arlian's bodies buried in the snow. They had fallen nearly 2,300 feet, almost half a mile down the mountainside. Heartbreakingly, they were still tethered together by a safety rope, a sign that they had been side by side in their final moments. Mountaineers often use safety ropes to secure themselves while navigating dangerous slopes. The fact that they remained connected suggests they had been moving together when the fall occurred, possibly trying to help each other or stay close as the ground beneath them gave way. Despite their experience, the mountain's steep, icy conditions proved unforgiving. Jean-Daniel Pession had a promising future in skiing. Along with his 15th place finish in the 2021 World Cup, he ranked 22nd at the 2022 World Championships in Vars, France. As a member of Italy's national skiing team, he was known for his talent and determination. Elisa Arlian was equally passionate about the sport. As a ski instructor, she helped others navigate the slopes with skill and confidence. She and Peshin shared an unbreakable bond, both in their love for skiing and their relationship. Their tragic loss sent shockwaves through the skiing community. The Italian Winter Sports Federation released a statement mourning their deaths, calling it a terrible loss for the world of skiing. The Aosta Valley Regional Council expressed deep sorrow, noting that the mountains, which had been their passion, had taken them too soon. Though the exact cause of their fall remains unknown, one thing is clear. Peshin and Arleon shared their last moments together, bound not just by the rope between them but by their deep connection. Did they slip? Did the icy terrain fail them? Could they have been rescued earlier? These are questions we may never have answers to. What we do know is that two talented, adventurous young lives were lost too soon, leaving behind a grieving community that will never forget them. It was May 2017 in Kennesaw, Georgia. Joelle Dalgleish, a 15-year-old high school sophomore, was spending the night at Red Top Mountain State Park with friends to celebrate a birthday. The trip was supposed to be a fun getaway, a break from school stress, and a chance to make memories. Joelle, known for her bright personality and kindness, had been looking forward to it for weeks. She was a member of her high school's track team, well-liked by classmates and teachers, and had a way of making everyone feel at ease. Her infectious laugh and positive energy made her unforgettable. But what should have been a night of fun took a tragic turn. That evening, after a day of laughter and campfire stories, the group settled into their hammocks to sleep. The sky was clear and the quiet of the forest surrounded them. Joelle lay peacefully in her hammock, unaware that disaster was moments away. Around 11:30 p.m., a large tree supporting her hammock suddenly snapped. Without warning, it crashed down on her. The weight and impact were devastating. Her friend Aaron O'Reilly, who was nearby, was the only one who saw it happen. The others, unaware at first, turned in shock when they heard the noise. Aaron ran to Joelle, calling out her name, but there was no response. The others rushed to help, their panic growing. Someone quickly called 911 as they tried to comfort Joelle. The impact had caused severe injuries, including fractures and internal trauma. It was clear that she was in critical condition. Paramedics arrived and rushed Joelle to Cartersville Medical Center. Due to the severity of her injuries, she was transferred to a trauma center in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Doctors worked tirelessly to save her, but despite their efforts, Joelle passed away early Sunday morning. She was only 15. Her sudden loss left her family, friends, and community in shock. Just hours earlier, she had been celebrating with friends full of life. Aaron, who had witnessed the tragedy, struggled to process what had happened. She was one of the kindest and happiest people you'd ever meet, she said. At Harrison High School, where Joelle was a student, her passing deeply affected everyone. Principal Ashlyn Campbell expressed the heartbreak felt by the school. Joelle's smile and laughter touched so many, she said in a statement. She was a dedicated student, and her presence will be missed. Her track coach, Kent Simmons, also shared his grief. Joelle brightened the lives of everyone around her. She was fun, sweet, and full of curiosity. She made friends effortlessly and always made people feel comfortable. Determined to honor her memory, Joelle's family, friends, and classmates held a vigil at Harrison High School. They gathered to remember the young girl who had left such a lasting impact. Her mother spoke about the joy Joelle brought to those around her, describing her as having an infectious laugh and a beautiful spirit. What made her story even more emotional was a video she had recorded months before her passing. In January, Joelle had shared a message about life and its fleeting nature. After her passing, her friends shared the video, and it quickly spread across social media. "Life is so short," Joelle had said in the video, her voice both serious and warm. "It's more than school or work. Every second you spend angry or upset is a second of happiness you won't get back." She spoke about the importance of kindness and making every moment count. Her words took on a heartbreaking significance after her passing. The video was shared widely, touching many people beyond those who had known her personally. It became a reminder to cherish life and appreciate every moment. The tragedy of Joelle's passing left many questions. What if the tree hadn't fallen? What if she had been in a different spot? What if this had just been an ordinary night of celebration? But the hardest question of all was, what if she had been able to live out the future she deserved? Joelle's story is a heartbreaking reminder of life's unpredictability. Sometimes things happen beyond our control, no matter how careful we are. While her life was cut short, her kindness, laughter, and the wisdom she shared continue to inspire those who knew her. As her loved ones navigate the pain of losing her, they hold on to the lessons she left behind, to be kind, to find joy in the little things, and to make every second count. Though her time was brief, the impact she made will never be forgotten.